الله أكبر.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أيتها الأخوات أيها الإخوة، أحييكم بتحية الإسلام، تحية من عند الله مباركة طيبة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So once again I want to thank ICNA and MAS for inviting us for this convention, the 39th convention, close to 40 inshallah, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. As I said in the previous session that I had, I'm trying to give less lectures and try to concentrate on the work I'm doing now, which is through an institution to connect or reconnect Tashri' al-Islami, which is the legal dimension of Islam, with the ethical teachings of Islam through the center. So as I said, this for me needs to be done by the scholars, but also by students and people who are attending lectures like this or conferences. So whatever is your interest, we have 12 fields where we are working. So now I'm trying to reach this, having monthly lectures through the website, having this research programs, so you can go through the application under my name or through the leaflets that we have in the booth, just to be connected to the work. I have done a lot of lectures. Now it's time for me also to concentrate on fields that are now also connecting worldwide through a network of scholars and students and ordinary Muslims. The question today is Islam misunderstood, and I think that it's a kind of introduction to the next two other talks with our teacher, Dr. Jamal Badawi. Once again, I keep on being with him in many of these lectures and conferences, and for years, even now, when I'm listening to you as you are listening to him, he's one of my teachers in substance and also in the way he deals with his fellow brothers and sisters in Islam and in humanity. As an introduction, let me say a few things. Worldwide today, but mainly, of course, for us living in the West, for you in the United States of America, the perception, when it comes to deal with Islam, the perception is mainly negative. The majority of the people, when asked about Islam in mainstream media, in the society, are responding with very negative perception of Islam. It's, for example, something which is very scary sometimes. You ask yourself, you should know, for example, that in the surveys that we had in the United States, the perception of Islam was less negative 1 year after September the 11th than today. So things that we thought that after 10 years people are going to change, in fact, there is, and there are campaigns that are carrying on all this about Sharia bill and Sharia in the states. It's now something that is reaching a point where there is a negative sentiment. I thought before that this would not come to the States, knowing the nature of your country, while I was facing this day in, day out in Europe. And in fact, unfortunately, what we experience in Europe, it's coming to you in a way which is very vicious and very negative. So this is where we cannot be passive spectator of what is happening. We have to look at facts, and we have to look at the situation and ask ourselves how we can resist, how we can respond to this, and in which way we have to respond. So this is something which is now quite clear. The reaction just after the shock in the States 10 years later is not as good as we could have thought. So it means that something here, it's done. You have lobbies, we have trends, we have people, and we know what Islamophobia is, but we know also in the political ground within the society, there are people that are working on spreading a bad perception of Islam. Now, the starting point of everything is not to be obsessed with the negative. And this is why I would start by saying we need to have at the beginning of the discussion two intellectual attitudes. The first one is whatever the situation, and if 10 years later you have people who are struggling so much to spread around a negative image of Islam, is because on the other side there are successes and things that are very positive that are happening. In fact, they are as negative as what is happening on the ground is having very positive dimensions. And this is where we should not look at the last 10 years, we should look at the last 2 or 3 generations of American Muslims or Western Muslims. And what you see is that 50 years from now, we did not expect the Muslims to be as they are today, present, visible, and becoming mainstream. In fact, it's because the Muslims are becoming mainstream and visible within the society that some are scared of the Muslim presence. So we need to be positive. The negative is coming from people who are scared of something which is the real entrenchment and presence and active presence of Western Muslims and American Muslims. So in fact, there is a reaction to this. So we need to remain positive. It doesn't mean that to be positive, we end up being naive. Positive means look at history, look at our recent history, and we are achieving a lot, walhamdulillah. In education, with the schools, with the mosque, with our presence in the campuses, our presence in the civil society, our presence everywhere, that's the fact that we are more visible. And people are saying, wow, it means they want to keep us thinking that our so-called integration is a failure. They keep on repeating it is a failure because at the local level, in fact, it's exactly the opposite. It works, and now there is an active Muslim Western presence, which is important and will have a very important impact in the future. This is one. The second thing, as an intellectual attitude, is even though it's positive, we should remain self-critical. Because if Islam is still misunderstood by people, the first that we have to blame is ourselves. We have to come back and say, okay, that's fine. We have done a lot, but there are things that are missing. There are things that we have to improve. There are things that we have to be self-critical. Why is it that after 2 or 3 generations of Muslim presence in the West, still our neighbor, still our fellow American or European citizens, they don't get it. They don't know us. We cannot sit down and say it's Fox News, it's the governments, it's us. The mediator on the ground are Muslims. And we have to be self-critical by being positive as to what we have achieved in the community or the first generation, and then critical as what we have to improve. That's the intellectual attitude. Positive and critical at the same time, which is, by the way we have to be with Allah. We rely on Him, but we remember that we have to do whatever we can in order to make the situation better. This is the way. Tawakkul ala Allah is not to be passive and to hope and to put our hope in Him. It's to do whatever we can. And when we do this, we say, Atawakkalu ala Allah. We first start by Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I start with Allah and then Atawakkalu. But after I have done what I have to do. And this is the critical things that I'm talking about, which is being self-critical. Now, there is also something which is important when it comes to Islam misunderstood. We want so much to be understood or to make our message understandable that sometimes we miss the essence and we keep on listening to people and responding to some of the questions that they have. And at the end, is someone, this is a psychological war. It's a psychological struggle. If you keep on asking somebody and asking him or her on something, you direct his or her attention to your question, not to the essence of who you are. So by pushing in one direction, you end up being on the defensive. If I am able to put you on the defensive, you are not the master of the game. You are reacting to what I want you to say. So this is why we have here to understand it's very dangerous always to be on the defensive. And how do we go beyond being on the defensive? Because very often we have Muslims, they want to be nice, they want to be accepted. I'm sorry, I like Karen Armstrong when she was saying, nobody on earth wants to be accepted or tolerated. And Muslims sometimes, it's so negative that we are very happy when a non-Muslim or people of their faith like what we have. Say, yes, they got it. But this is showing how defensive we are. 3 things that we have to remember if we want to go beyond Islam misunderstood to something that this is what we have to do to make it more understood, more visible in the positive way that we are talking about. First, sometimes you have people who are questioning you from where they are. If you are confident with who you are and what you believe in, sometimes you have to question the questions. So when the people are coming to you and say, you as Islam, it's obvious, they say, where do you come from? What do you know about it's obvious? Obvious it's on Wikipedia? Obvious it's on Fox News? What is this obvious you are talking about? How could you come to me with this question? To question the question is sometimes the right way of responding the question. By saying, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this assumption. I was on the French TV recently, and the guy came to me and said, it's obvious in Islam because this is the very word of God that there is no room for interpretation in Islam. I said, there is no room for your ignorance about Islam. That's the point. Because this is not the way. Yes, it's coming from Allah, but the room for interpretation is Islam. You don't know anything. You repeat what is obvious out of your own ignorance. It's obvious for an ignorant. So you question the question. So this is the way you are setting and knowing with your knowledge, you are able, but be careful. You only can question the question when you are confident enough with your knowledge. So it means that you have to do the job. You have to go beyond the perceptions of the people and to come with your understanding of what Islam is, and also the people around you, where they come from. For example, when they talk about Sharia. Sharia is the penal code. It's obvious. The problem is that many Muslims in the United States of America, they are able to say, these people are Islamophobic, these people are against Islam, and you come to them and say, what would be your answer to them? No answer. Because if you don't know your religion, if you don't know what Sharia is, if you don't know what are the words that you are using, of course you're not going to respond. Or you are going to respond out of your own ignorance and not your strong knowledge in a way which is distorting the essence of Islam to please the people. Less knowledge is the risk of more pleasing the people. And Allah doesn't want this. What we want is rid Allah, no rid nas. We are not here to satisfy the people. We satisfy Him, but we know that if we know how to satisfy Him at the end, this will be the way we are going to be heard by the people. So question the question first. Second, sometimes when you are with people, they come with, this is a way, we know this in psychology. You repeat and repeat and repeat the question to push the people, as I told you. Sometimes you have to ignore the questions. I don't want to talk about that. Because your question is that you don't care about the answer. You only care about the people listening to your question. So sometimes you have to come with a clear agenda of what you want to say. And sometimes you have to say, that's not the point. Silly question. Let me come to something else. So for example, somebody coming to me and say, who are you first? Are you first a Muslim or an American? My answer, silly question. Let me come to the point. Because this is not the question. The question is to challenge my belonging to the United States of America by saying you are first a Muslim, meaning you are less an American. And this is why you have to come with sometimes ignoring the question and coming with what you want to say. Why? Because at the end, they are pushing you to some questions that are pushing you not to come with the essence of Islam. They are coming to question the details to avoid you addressing the essence of your religion. You end up talking about rules that are details and not the spirit, the essence, the heart, and the spiritual dimension of Islam. And when you end up being like this, you are yourself thinking of your religion in the light of what the people are saying. So this is not the answer that you can. And then the last thing that I was saying, by sometimes questioning the question and sometimes ignoring some of the silly questions that the people have, you set yourself the agenda and your priorities in the way you talk to your people here. American Muslims, as Western Muslims, need a clear vision and a clear Islamic discourse for Western people. And this is where we put the priorities, we put the frame, and we know what are the steps and the goals. We are not always on the defensive responding. And you know, when you have a way and you know where you want to go, you have to keep your priorities. If not, you will have people on the way are using something in the war, it's known as strategic distractions, diversions. They come and they ask you questions and you lose your way. You don't know what are your priorities because you end up thinking that their emergencies or their questions are the questions that are essential for you. And you end up not knowing what are your own priorities and what is your agenda. So this is where you are not making it more understandable. You are wasting your time with some people who don't care about your answers. They only care about, distracting you with their questions. So you have to be clear on that. Having said that, now, when we speak about the way we deal with our religion, quite clearly, the first thing that I need to set here is that you have in the West something which is, there is two Islams. There is the bad Islam and with the rituals, and there is something which is the Sufi tradition, the mystical tradition, and this is the right Islam. And by the way, the majority of the books that are read and sold in the West, in spiritual life, are about mysticism and Sufism. That's fine, I don't have a problem with this. Only if we, as Muslims, we recapture the essence of Islam and making the true spiritual center of our religion. Not against Islam, but as the center of Islam, its rituals and its commandments and prohibitions. So we need to come with setting and being able in the West to come with this deep spiritual message of Islam. Because when you speak about the spiritual message of Islam, you become universal. And Christians and Jews and agnostic and atheists, Buddhists, Hindus, when they listen to you, the spiritual message, they understand that there are lots of things that are essential in your religion that they can understand. They get that. But you decide to talk about this. You don't end up talking, 80% of your talks are about penal code when this is something which is marginal when compared to the spiritual dimension of Islam. So this is something that is so important, is how do we talk about our heart? How do we talk about our education? How do we talk about being better human beings? This is Islam. Islam is all about reform yourself. It's all about come back to your heart. The starting point of everything should be this. And then something which is also critical for Muslims. If you want your religion to be understood in the West, it has to do with the terminology. So you have people, for example, some so-called, Orientalists or people who are specialists in Islam are saying, for example, when it comes to Islam, when you see or listen to somebody who is referring to Sharia, so he's an Islamist, who is a radical, who is somebody who has the bad side of the Islamic spectrum. I'm sorry. As Muslims, we need to define Sharia. We need to define jihad. We need to define salah. We need to define the Arabic words into English with our definitions. But no one has the right to remove from our glossary or our terminology words that are essential in Islam. So this is our job. This is what we have to do as Muslims. You, as American Muslims, you need to get the Arabic word and the translation, which is right. And you impose the definition. You never let anybody define the Islamic words for you. That's not their job. They don't have the right to do that. But if we are not doing it ourselves, they will end up doing it for us. So this is where, as Muslims, terminology is essential in everything that we are doing. The discourse is based on concepts, mustalahat. These are very specialized. But as Muslims, at least you need to know this. You need to know what we are talking about in order to respond to this. And being able to speak good English about a deep understanding of your religion. Good understanding, good translation. This is something that is part of our challenge. Very quickly, because my time is ending, two things that we have to do also as Muslims is be careful. Lots of Muslims, we are very happy when we have a convention, 20,000, 70,000 people are coming. There are much more Muslims outside than inside. You know that. And first, what we have to do is also to teach Islam to our brothers and sisters in Islam. There are brothers and sisters. Many are not practicing. Many are lost. Many they don't know. Many are on the defensive. Many, they are scared by what the people are saying. Many Muslims are changing their name. They are changing their names. They don't want to be called Muhammad. So they end up Momo. And you laugh. You can laugh at that. That's a catastrophe. We don't laugh at that. It means that there is a silent colonization of the minds and the hearts. And we, as Muslims, at least we have to care about our brothers and sisters. Educate your brothers and sisters. Don't judge them by saying you are lost. If he or she is lost, you are part of the one who made them lost. Because at the end, our responsibility, our accountability is, what about your brothers and sisters? لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه. That if you don't love for your brothers and sisters what you love for yourself, your faith is not complete. That's as important as that. So we have also to look at our brothers and sisters within the community, not only to think about, a Christian is in the room, we have to convince him or her that Islam is great. But to judge my brothers and sisters because he or she is not going right, I'm ready for that. Judging my brothers and sisters and pleasing the Christian or the Jew or the non-Muslim. What is this? There's something wrong in our minds. Put it right. Stop judging your brothers and sisters that are not practicing well. Try to help them. And then you are not here to please the people. Be as you should be. And the message of Islam is beautiful enough to please the people. But don't sell it to please the people. Don't do that. That's not us. And the last point that I wanted to make is to look at the Prophet ﷺ. And he was patient and respectful. And the way that he was respectful, he was repeating 3 times the same thing and speaking very slowly for you to understand. So sometimes in the West we have to repeat out of respect, out of our dignity, that you follow in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, in the way he was dealing with Muslims and non-Muslims. Repeat, don't judge, and serve. This is the way you are, to show that your presence is contributing. So adapting to the knowledge of the people, repeating for the memory of the people, being patient, being perseverant, and with endurance. This is the Prophet ﷺ. This is, by the way, the meaning of sabr. A sabr is patience, perseverance, and endurance, all together. Patience when the people are criticizing you, perseverance in what you do, and endurance, you are going to face attacks, you are going to face people who are in this not doing the job. So I don't have time, I'm sorry, I had other things to say, but as my time is over, just you remember, ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana. Wisdom starts with us, ourselves. With wisdom we have to behave. in a good way with the substance of what we are saying. We have to be very cautious not to hurt the people. We are here to say the truth. We are not here to hurt the people. It's not right because we hurt. Even to Fir'aun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending Musa wa Harun, وَقُلَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. But what we are trying to do with this guy who is saying, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Even him, at that level of arrogance, you are here to serve him. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Him, the guy who is saying, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. I am your Lord. I am your Lord, the highest one. And this is where you come with softness, sweet words. Meaning what? How could you be sweet in front of an arrogant? How can you do that? But mastering yourself. Spiritual education to face the oppressors. Spiritual educations to face your neighbor. That's the way, in fact, we start with this, which is important. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is let us follow the Prophet and ﷺ and his methods. And sometimes you should understand something. You should to take opposition and critiques as good signs. It's strange, paradoxical, but take them in a constructive way. Anyone who is coming to you, telling you and criticizing you is sending you a message. Are you right? Can you do better? How can you reform? So the people around you, the people who are in this society criticizing the Muslims are sometimes useful for you to be better Muslim. So even the people who are criticizing you could be useful. And then sometimes you say, you are here, alhamdulillah. Carry on. It helps me to be a better human being. And then just one thing that I wanted to say. You know, with Allah, you talk to him and you listen to his answers. With human beings, remember something. Listen to them and talk after listening. With Allah, you talk and you listen. With human being, you listen and you talk to know exactly what you have to say. Wallahu a'lam wa a'la wa ahkam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.